Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having us. I am Jon Krog Pedersen, traveling from Norway, working as a publisher for Helga Flatland, who is among us here today. Johana Gustawsson, very pleased to meet you. You have actually traveled all the way from Sweden, and you end up talking to a Norwegian. So
In
I'm
India.
sorry about that. Today we are going to discuss your book, Blood Song, a thriller novel, the third in the series of a Castel and Bois or Roy series. First of all, I must say thank you. It has been a great pleasure to read it, a thrill. It's a well written and exciting at the same time, focusing on political aspects as well as social dynamics, I would say. And so, first of all, I would like to start out by asking you to give an outline of the history of the book. Tell us a little bit about Blood Song.
So, first of all, hello. I'm very honored to be here. This is my second time in Kerala, and I'm very, very happy to be with you today, with a fellow Scandinavian. Well, I'm an adopted Scandinavian. So, Blood Song is as well published in Malayalam by dcbooks and by Orenda Books in English. And it's the third installment in the series, in the Roy and Castel series. And in that series, I'm diving into the big history with the big H. And the first one is more the Second World War. The first one is more the Second World War. The second one dives into London, 19th century. And in this one, I'm diving into a part of my family history, which is the Spanish Civil War. My two grandfathers were involved in this war in very different ways. One of my grandfather was born in Spain, in Catalonia, in Barcelona, and he grew up, he was 12 when the war started in 1936. And he used to tell me stories about him having to go and spend the night in the tube with his mattress and his mother because of the shelling and the bombs that were falling over the city. And my other grandfather, who is a war hero in France, before becoming a war hero of the Second World War, he engaged into the international brigades to fight for the Republic in Spain because his own father was Spanish. So he was a wood carver, and he decided to fight for the good in man. And he went there, fought, lost, and came back. And I thought it was such a beautiful thing to have those two basically sides of my family, the father and the mother side, who would basically have this very strong bond, political bond to that big part of our history. But sadly enough, strangely enough, in France, we didn't know much about the Franco years, which was it was a bloody dictature. We're talking about 500,000 people who fled at the start of the war. We're talking about 150,000 people being executed by Franco, and so much more numbers that I'm not going to bore you with. But I thought that it was a wonderful way to use a crime story, a thriller, to share with, we call that populaire in French, with the biggest number, that information, to sort of, without vulgarizing it, but without spreading basically the knowledge, and talk about this throughout a thriller.
It's very interesting how you combine the historical with a more classical crime novel history. I would say the elaboration on the Franco regime in Spain and the war in Europe is maybe not as known to the people here as to us, and even to us as Europeans. This is sort of a forgotten conflict. I mean, we talk a lot about the Second World War and the aftermath, but then before there was the battle between the Republicans and the loyalists in France, in Spain. Sorry, taking away the children from their mothers and raising in the new under the new rules that lasted until 1975. But this is one thread in the novel, and the other, and this is your specialty, I guess, is to combine very interesting and deep history with a more classical crime thing. What is happening at the beginning of Blood Song, and who are the characters we meet?
Yes, so we are with my two main characters. So I have a profiler. She's called Emily Roy, and she worked for Scotland Yard, which is the police of the UK. They investigate generally criminal cases, and she's a profiler for them. In the UK, you have that type of profilers, which are called with a different name, and she's called to investigate on a crime in Sweden because it's the family of one of her co-workers, but some people she knows, that has been basically massacred. And she's coming with, she's got to investigate with my other main character, who is Alexis Castells, who is she's a French, not a crime writer, but she writes true crime. She's more of a sort of a journalist type, investigative. And she will join forces with Emily Roy because in the third installment, and that will be a spoiler, because there is always love life in thrillers, she had married a Swede, and she's living with a Swede, and she is so living on the west coast of Sweden in Falkenberg. And that basically trio of women will investigate the death of that family. And they will find, of course, a link to what happened in Spain during the Civil War, but even more after. And what I'm focusing on that book a lot is what happened to the children that disappeared during the Franco regime. Lots of children were kidnapped. And there were, for example, if a woman was pregnant and she was she belonged to the Republican, her baby was taken, he was declared dead, but the baby was not dead, and he was given to a Frankist family. So I'm talking about all those children who were placed in orphanages, were most of the time abused, and what happened to them. Because Franco stayed in power for 36 years. The war lasted 3 years, but Franco stayed for more than one generation, continuing what is done. Yes.
And have they agreed on a story of what happened in this war, or have they not? It's a great silence after the war, isn't it?
Sorry, I didn't hear this one with the echo.
After the war, they never decided what really happened, because brothers killing brothers ends up in silence, I guess.
Yes.
There's no...
That's the most terrible thing, I think. I mean, for me, we talked about it when we met. What has been really a shocker for me is the fact that in Spain, Franco died. Okay, it was in the mid-70s. He died, and when he died, he passed on his power to the king, Juan Carlos, and the Spanish king. And instead of having like the Nuremberg trials and deciding to solve this, to give peace to the victim, to punish this dictator and all the people who are working with him, everyone, even the socialists, said, let's just not talk about it. As we say in France, we're going to put a napkin on it, and we're just not going to talk about it. And it was called the Silence Pact. And we have in Spain lots of writers talked about it. Almodovar, the very famous Spanish director, talked about it. For example, there have been found. We know that there's been 800 mass graves that were found with tens of thousands of people, I think it was, without knowing. Some people still don't know who were their parents, who were their grandparents, who were their children. And imagine a government saying, zip, we don't talk about it. Now you deal with your thing. And I think for me, it was very shocking, and I wanted to talk about it and to shed a light on my level. But I felt I had the legitimacy as well, that being my heritage and having had a grandfather who fought for it. It was kind of passing on the light of information and knowledge, I think, whilst entertaining.
It is entertaining at the same time, really. And I would say that also with your background, you're from Marseille in France.
Yes.
You moved to London. You live in Stockholm with your Swedish husband, and you're exploring your Catalan background from Spain. How, if we could talk a little bit about the meeting with Sweden, I'm very curious how, because the book is full of, I would say, cultural meetings between the quite diverse cultures between France and Sweden. Would you say something about that and how it is for you to use your own background in the writing?
Well, it's I'm a girl from the south of Europe. Okay, I'm born close to the Mediterranean, Marseille. We people, as you can see, I move my hands as I talk. I'm very tactile. I smile a lot. And I lived in London for 12 years, but London is very peculiar. It's not like the rest of England. You have it's a country, it's a city, where you have a lot of expats and immigrants like I was. So it's like a Babel Tower. You have languages everywhere. It's a little bit chaotic in that sense, but I'm from Marseille, so I love chaos. And moving to Sweden has been, I'm absolutely in love with the landscape. I'm on the island of Lidingö. It's an island which is on the east of Stockholm and is linked to Stockholm by a bridge. So by car, I'm like 15 minutes away from the city center, but we are isolated enough to have that kind of precious bubble. So the nature is breathtaking. You as Norwegian, you're blessed with amazing nature. You have basically down the hill of my house, I have the sea. I have deers coming to my garden to eat. It's like my French colleague to joke. They call me Snow White now because I give food, to all the animals. So it's on that aspect, it's been absolutely wonderful. What has been tough, if I may be honest, is the fact that there is a huge difference in dealing with strangers and foreigners. So,
in what way?
So, what I didn't realize when I moved to Sweden, because I knew, of course, my husband for 20 years, all his friends, his family, all very welcoming. But what I didn't realize is that I was welcome because I was in the circle already. When I arrived in Sweden, in a new community, I'm the foreigner, and I was not welcome. People don't have that, it's not that I was not welcome, it's that I didn't feel welcome. Because for me, giving a welcome is coming, smiling, shaking a hand and saying, what do you need? Hello, I'm the mother of this boy or that girl, like I would do if someone. And people are more shy, which I taken against me. And I think it's just different culture. So it was very hard at the start because I was waiting for someone to come and say, hi, I'm the mother of Björn or Jürgen. Hello. But no, people were shying away. But even and I was like, God, what's wrong with me? And then I realized, I said, well, I'm just going to go to them. And that's what I've done without shying away from who I am, because I am who I am. And I talk with my hands and I smile and I don't flirt. It's just that I smile. And it's my culture. And I went towards them. And I had that thing where I was talking to people, and I saw that what they told me is that we didn't dare because our English is so bad. And I said, but that's not true. Your English is just as good as mine. So what was beautiful was that it was an illustration of how they can be misunderstanding when there are none, actually. It's just that I was being firm on my culture, they were being firm on theirs, and then there was no meeting point. And once you go to that bridge and you try to basically create a bond with still being who you are, and I was the foreigner, I was the one in their country. So I had to make that first step, but then everything was just fine. And I'm accepting kind of that difference, and I'm looking at all the bright sides. For example, the education system in Sweden, which is, I have 3 sons, and school is absolutely wonderful. So, yes, and many other things, Yeah.
You have put some of your own experience into 2 of your protagonists. Alexis is a true crime writer, and Emily is a profiler. And a profiler, if I understand correctly, is someone who tries to understand why a crime is committed, looking at the background, the social, the political profile, basically, which is quite a good package for a writer, isn't it, as yourself? And yeah, I guess that was not the question, but it was. I'm interested in how you use your own background as a journalist to explore all the fields that you are doing.
But your question was on point with the profiler, actually, because my family, I have a family of psychologists around me. It's my father is a psychologist, my sister is a psychologist, so I always looked at life in a very funny lens, through a very funny lens, because in my family, so my mother was a teacher for children who have difficulties, come from very difficult background, and all my family were working kind of the social, social, not services, but working with people. And at home, we always believed very strong in psychology, but to great extent that made me feel very shameful when I was a kid, because if I was falling, for example, hurting my knee, my parents would ask me, what happened there? Are you sure you were not upset before you fell? Or if I had a throat ache, it would be the same thing. Everything was up for discussion. We talked about so much. And as a teenager, I found that so annoying and intrusive. And when it was time to basically write, how funny that we come back to what we were taught. And I came back to psychology. And because really, as a profiler, what you do is that you dissect. You dissect the past, you dissect the soul, you dissect the desire, you dissect everything. And I find that extremely interesting to see what will direct a human being towards basically evil. Because crime, killing people, it's evil. Because what we see when we see serial killers or basically offenders is that these are people who all the time had a terrible childhood. They were abused, they suffered terribly, they were rejected. But not all people who have been abused become serial killers, thank God, because if not, we would be a nation full of it. So I thought, that's what really, really I found absolutely fascinating, is to dive into the past, to find the tools, to basically draw that picture. Is victim profiling, geographic profiling, we have all of this. And of course I had to study massively all this before diving into it. But I'm a geek for that kind of thing. I love research. So...
Very interesting. I'd say it's a very sophisticated combination of qualities in the crime novel. You haven't even talked about the killings yet. Tell us something about the core of the crime here.
Well, it's funny because when I started writing, I didn't know I would write a crime novel. I had that idea that I wanted to write about my first novel, Block 46. I didn't have that plan. I wanted to write about my granddad. I wanted to write about that experience, and I wanted to write about what was my life. A girl from the South who grew up in the South and was basically exported to London at the time I was living there, and with that strong background. So when it was time to write that book, it took that shape of a crime story, and I was surprised, because I thought, yes, I always loved reading crime stories. I grew up with Agatha Christie and Hercule Poirot, but I grew up with Maupassant and Rimbaud, and I was so surprised. And I think that when I shaped it, it came so naturally. I think maybe that's why I'm happy in Sweden. I'm very organized. So I have that spontaneity of Southern people, but when it comes to my work, I'm so square. I write a very detailed plan, and I stick to it, I think a lot before, I dream a lot before. And then when I write, my freedom is within that frame. And that's when it's like a canvas, basically, when you paint. So I have my canvas, and I will create on the canvas. It won't be anything on the wall. It's a little bit the same. But I think that writing a crime novel was a surprise. And after that, you know how it is. As it worked, and it's my job, now my publisher is asking me, just thrillers, just crime. Don't you dare writing anything else. So hopefully when I will have a bit more time, when the children will have grown, I will be able to write other things. Maybe just history, and maybe love story, God knows.
I was at least very happy to read your book, and I will continue to follow. You will publish actually a book together with a Norwegian. You're writing together. It is published next year. And now, unfortunately, our time is up, so we are opening for questions from the audience.
Hi, good afternoon. Am I audible?
I'm hearing so.
Thanks for giving Emily Roy and Alexis Cancels. For the female characters. My question is in Kerala we have one movie Drishyam released a few years back, and the crime scene or the modus operandi of that crime is it was brilliant, but it was done by the public also after that. So while you are framing a crime scene, so you will have that thoughts like people will imitate that the crime what you are writing, or you will put a loophole for Emily Roy or Alexis Castles to find that.
I really don't know. I mean, it's when if I understood well, you're talking about the adaptation, right? That's what you're talking about. Did I understand well? Right now there've been the movie business and adaptation business. It's a nightmare. We've been in talk for the trilogy now for, my God, so many years, with a very famous French actress who has been basically the light of that project, and we're still basically trying desperately. Now there is a novel that has not been yet translated here, which is called Yule Island. And in that novel, I'm talking about an island, a very small pedestrian island that is just located in front of where I live. And this one is basically being adapted as we speak. So now I can tell you in this one, it won't be shot, sadly, in Sweden. It will be shot in France. That is the example of TV, because they need to get money from the French people, because I'm French. So it will be shot in Normandy, and they will add a Celtic flavor instead of having a Scandinavian one. And they were asking me, there was a funny, do you want to play something? And I used to do acting. I was, for fun, I was acting, and I said, never, ever. I don't want to see my face in it, I want to see the actors. I want to have fun. I'm a consultant on the project. That is a lot of fun. But if I may speak a truth, writers, once, writers, I mean, writers of book, once there is an adaptation, they don't want you in it. They just pay you for you to get out of the project because they know that you're going to say, but she was not like this, so she wouldn't say this, or so they want you out. So when I signed my consultancy thing, the producers told me, but Johana, how much do you want to be involved? And I said, well, I know you don't want me involved, do you? And she said, no, we don't want you involved. So we just had, a formal chat. And that formal chat, we discussed how we can extend basically the book, because it's one book and they need to do 6 episodes. So we talked about what was important in my books. And but that's it. From now on, we need my agent to send email after phone call for me to be informed. And I had a colleague actually, and that is a true story in France, who was not informed of the premiere of the series. They forgot the writer, if you can believe it. So that says a lot.
Hello. Hi. Johanna, I would like to, more than a question, is a congratulations for your book, the book song. It's because, I'm Spanish, so I born after Franco died. And as you said, there are a lot of things that are not... sorry. Can you hear me better?
Yeah,
okay, great. So I would like to congratulate you because in the book, as you say, there are histories or words that your family told you. Nowadays, this year, we are celebrating 50 years since Franco died. And also there are a lot of celebration, and there are part of the society, there are part of the Spanish people that don't understand why we are going to celebrate this. So this is important also for for the new generations, for people that sometimes read books only for fun, to learn things that happen really. Not only for books, historical books, also for information that the people tell about what happened to them, what happened to their neighbors, and it's really important to have this book in special for me, and this kind of books for the society, for all of us to not to lose this information translated from one generation to another. So thank you, Johanna, for this book.
Oh, thank you so much. What you were saying reminded me of an anecdote. It's a very sweet story. My first book deals with the Second World War and the deportation. And what happened is that with that book, which was my first one, I got to travel a lot into high schools, and I gave lots of talks. And one day I received an email from a girl who was 16, and she told me, for me, Second World War was so boring. It was just Hitler stuff, and we know Hitler. And then I read your book. And then she read my book, and she went on to do research. And basically, she got to read books, and I'm telling you this, I have goosebumps. She got to read books she would have never read, and she got to get information she would have never basically had. And I think that the duty of remembrance and passing on what has happened for it to, as they said, never again, plus jamais ça, never again. And I think that's when it's so important. It's through that via thrillers or crime, as we can reach so many people, it's a way to pass on this, because it's not history books. So it's a bit more fun, but we can still tackle issues. And I think that's why it's a wonderful genre. I really think so. But thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Johanna. I believe our time is up, but there's a blinking
It's
prompter.
blinking, just to let us know. Stop.
I have to finish by thanking you for your book and your talk. It's been lovely. And thank you to the Kerala Festival for inviting us.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Johana Gustawsson and Jon Krog Pedersen. That's the end of the session. Blood Song, a Thriller.